conference at Jekyll Island. We carried a big crowd. There were, I think, about 15 of the members that went, plus their wives and a lot of the children. And that was a big occasion. In fact, they honored us, and I have a copy of the bulletin here, by putting a plaque on the program for that day, showing our 25th anniversary from 1945 to 1970. And on the back of it, it shows a little sentence or two there by Sam Inman as the president and you as the president-elect, where they're welcoming everybody to the opening banquet of the conference, where we were the hosts for the night. Hadn't been able to find out what we did to be called the host, whether we paid for the dinner for 350
no
people.
Problem. No problem with me. We were the best in the nation.
The highlight of the evening, really, though, wasn't just the banquet and all the people, the frolicking, the giving out of the big door prizes and all the singing that goes on, but was the speaker that night was Earl Nightingale, who, you know, was the big world-famous motivational speaker. It was just a good time. It lasted about 3 days, and that opening banquet was a real tribute to our club and its 25th anniversary.
Cecil, something else that we want to remember in this observance of our 50th Rotary anniversary is some of the Rotary humor. And this is about the funniest looking bunch I ever saw anyhow, so I guess we are the ones qualified to best tell that story. There have been a lot of things over the past 50 years, and one I think of was a lot of the humor that took place during our pancake days. And all these fellows here remember that. Down at the National Guard Armory, we'd start way, way before sunup and cook pancakes all day and most of the night as a fundraiser. And it was a lot of good fun and fellowship, but somehow or other we kind of got out of that habit. It was too much hard work, I suppose. And we discontinued the Pancake Day. The thing I remember most about Pancake Day reminds me of the classification system. I contracted hemorrhoids during one of our hotcake days, trying to lift a big heavy kettle of boiling water without burning myself. Everybody was so busy I didn't have any help. Sam Hay made a house call that night. And the best story about the classification system, though, was Sam Inman on the way to the regular meeting had a traffic accident, and the president appointed a committee to go to the hospital and check on him. And he sent a doctor, a lawyer, a minister, and an undertaker. So that pretty well covered any eventuality. One of our most favorite activities years ago was a visit to Roy Taylor's Park for a meeting with our wives and Rotarians. And that was always a lot of fun and a lot of good food and a lot of good fellowship. And Mr. Johnny Crawford, you all remember Mr. Johnny, and it's a shame all Rotarians don't remember Mr. Johnny, but he was quite a Rotarian, and I think had a perfect membership for I don't know how many years. And anyway, one Rotarian spiked the spring. They had a spring down there that had a pipe that ran from the spring, and you would hold your cup under the pipe to get the fresh spring water. And he rigged a triggered deal whereby moonshine would pour in at the end of the pipe, and when certain people would come up, he'd trigger that. And Mr. Johnny said that was the best water in Stevens County. And he wanted to have the meetings there more regularly. And of course, some of the fellows here were involved in a skit we did at the district conference down in Savannah. We were supposed to have this skit prepared. We had a script and everything, and the whole thing was on attendance, and we were trying Johnny Crawford, who I said must have had 40 years of perfect attendance, for being absent and not maintaining his attendance. And Bill Good, bless his heart, the late Bill Good, was president of the club, and several of us were the actors in this skit. And we had practiced the script until about 2 o'clock in the morning, and it had gotten really foolish and crazy, and we decided it was a hopeless situation. He says, let's go to bed, and I'll tell him in the morning that we're not going to be able to do the skit. Well, before breakfast the next morning, Dr. Good comes around getting us all out of bed and says, they say we have to do the skit. So we went ahead and we went on and ad-libbed the whole thing. Any resemblance to what we did in that script was purely an accident. But it turned out to be the hit of the whole convention. It was absolutely fabulous, if I do say so myself. And anyway, Bill Donald was the prosecuting attorney, And sometime during the practice session, he broke one of the, he had big dark rimmed glasses, and he broke one of the earpieces off, and he would walk back and forth before the judge making his point, and he'd take his glasses on and off, and he'd stick one of that broken piece in his eye every time he'd go to put his glasses. But anyway, there was one great big lady, rather rotund lady, sitting right on the front row, and she actually fell down in the floor laughing at our skit. And every club in the district asked us to come and do that skit. Impossible to do that skit anywhere else, so we did.
Or repeat it. As far as
I believe Bob Evans might have something he wants to add to this story, Bob.
Well, you know, gosh, it must have been 10, 12 years ago. I think it's when Bob Bigham was president of Rotary. He installed this program of, because he was kind of a shy fella, he installed this program of us asking us to sit at different tables each week, and so we could fellowship differently. Well, I reported to the club recently that that program's still in effect, because every time I start to sit down, somebody says, "Evans, why don't you sit at another table?"
And L.J. Steele, I guess, maintained next to Johnny Crawford and me. He may have outdone Mr. Johnny about perfect attendance, but you've got a story you want to tell, L.J.
I have 42 years of perfect attendance, but we attendance was lagging, and somebody suggested that we get a goat, a young Billy, and the person that was absent, he had to provide for this goat until somebody else was absent. So the next week he was responsible for getting it back to the club and presenting it to whoever was absent before. So being a young veterinarian and just started out with a small animal clinic, I boarded a goat a lot. But it didn't go over too well. We kept it for about a year. At the time we was meeting at the Albemarle Hotel, a little white billy goat, and so this made a lot of people, wives, unhappy. The guy would take it home, and the wife had to look after it till that he could get rid of it. A week later, maybe. So anyway, we decided that the goat had to go, but we had the ladies' night in the Albemarle Hotel. Then it was quite a gala occasion. So as the last of the goat, he was paraded across the floor in the Albemarle Hotel there, but he had long pendulous testicles, and the Snyder Brothers paint, they were quite clowns, and so they came up with the idea that we should paint those testicles a luminous orange. The poor fella, that was his last ado there they came across, but he shined very much.
The Rotary Bulletin has been a part of the weekly meetings from the beginning and have gone through various stages of production, as some of these pictures show. Thanks to the classification system of Rotary membership, we were always fortunate enough to have in the club a printer by profession, and naturally they always seemed to get the bulletin chairman assignment. Probably one of the most dedicated bulletin committees was headed by the late Leon Pierce, who spent a great deal of time on it each week, seeing to it that members' birthdays, anniversaries, and community activities were recognized in the publication. Programs are an important part of every Rotary meeting, and Toccoa Rotary has had many outstanding speakers, such as Congressman Nathan Deal, former Senator Matt Mattingly,